All right. Hello. I think we're ready almost. All right. Hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about the idea, the concept of just because you can doesn't mean you should. All right. And this is something that I think is really, really important in our time where a lot of us are waking up to the idea that capitalism is messed up, that the societies that we live in, the rules of the society that we live in, aren't conducive to human life being healthy, being anything reasonable. And and I think a lot of us waking up to self-love and waking up to turning our guilt that we aren't able to do everything that we are supposed to be doing by the dictates of our systems, or waking up to this idea that when we're constantly feeling inadequate and we're constantly feeling like we're not good enough and we're constantly feeling like we're failing, that instead of assuming that that is true and that when we feel that way, that is actually what's happening and that we're correct in our assumption that we're flawed and not enough and not good enough, we're starting to question, like, okay, well, what if I am good enough? What if I love myself? What if I give myself the benefit of the doubt? And then we're going, okay, so that means that we're going to have to look at our systems a little bit differently, and we're going to have to look at where this idea of what enough is and what being good enough is, and we're going to question that stuff. And I feel like for a lot of us, we're ready to hear this message that capitalism and just the way that our culture right now tells us we have to operate in order to be good enough, we're ready to start to be like, yeah, that doesn't work and that isn't going to work for normal human health, and that we're going to start to change the way that we interact with ourselves and the way that we interact with the systems around us in order to create the new world. Because again, I think a lot of us really want a new world. We want an awakening. We want society to be different. We are looking out and we are seeing all of these problems, and we're seeing all of this stuff that is just not working, and we're seeing all the exploitation, we're seeing all the damage, we're seeing the environmental destruction, we're seeing the ways that all of, like, so many of our systems are just corrupted. And I think a lot of us are feeling like we're a little bit helpless to change stuff, and we don't know where to start in terms of like turning the systems around. And I think we can feel a little bit nihilistic and we can feel a little bit hopeless. And then at the same time, in our own personal lives, just so many of us struggle with these self-esteem issues, and feeling like we're just never good enough and we're never doing enough and we're never arriving and we're never achieving what we should be achieving, we're never landing where we should be landing, we're never getting where we think we need to be getting to feel good enough and to feel safe and to feel secure. And like I say, we're ready to start to question the very foundations of the systems, okay? Because for a long time, and because of the way that society is set up, when we don't have safety, when we don't feel good about ourselves, when we are being rejected, when we don't know how to create stability for ourselves, when we are in systems that are fundamentally set up to make sure that we don't have stability, we have traditionally blamed ourselves. Like, there has been a lot, especially in the spiritual communities over the last several decades, there has been this huge idea that your entire reality is up to you, and if you just work hard enough, and if you just do enough, and if you just show up enough, and if you try and all of these things, that you can make your life perfect, that you can heal your body of anything that's wrong with it, that you can find this ideal job, that you can find your ideal relationships, and that if you are having trouble in your life, that if you are having problems in your life, if you have bad habits, if you have scapegoats, if you have any addictions, all of this stuff is because there's some flaw in you. And here are all the spiritual tools and the self-help tools and the personal growth tools to kick your ass so that you will be different and you will be better. And then that's how you fix everything that's wrong in your life. And this perpetual self-blame, this perpetual society blaming people, right? Because then again, we go on the news and we go and we look at kind of any of the narratives out there of people who are addicted or people who are struggling or people who don't have enough, and we hear they're lazy, they're addicted, they're bad people, they're dangerous, they're criminals, they're all of these things. And there's all this stigma around not having enough, not being enough, not doing enough. And it's just, we've had this on and on and on and on and on, just constant barrage of, if your life isn't awesome, if your life isn't perfect, it's because of something you're doing, and it's because of something you're not doing, and you need to fix it. You need to fix yourself, you need to change your habits, you need to do whatever. And now it's just kind of funny because we're seeing the world sort of wake up to trauma and to the fact that we maybe inherited systems and ways of being and ways of thinking and ideas that maybe aren't true, and that a lot of us are finally starting to see that we don't have an inner saboteur, that we don't have bad parts of ourselves that are actually bad that we have to get rid of. They're not really self-sabotaging. They're not really like addicted because they're bad. We're starting to see like, no, like we inherited these ways of being as trying to survive. This is how we were raised to believe we had to be in order to get our needs met. We're seeing a lot of, okay, well, I'm not actually a weak addict that just can't do anything. I have spent my entire life feeling totally unsafe to be myself, and these are my adaptive strategies to try to have some modicum of pleasure within this world where I feel totally unsafe. Like we're starting to wake up to this idea that we're not inherently evil, and we're not inherently lazy, and we're not inherently broken, and we don't have bad parts. It's that every way that we're being is an adaptive strategy to just try to survive what we were raised in and the way that we perceived what we were raised in and all of these things. So this is all very positive. And so I want to kind of piggyback on that right now and say there's this hustle culture that we live in, right? This continual messaging that everything in your life is your responsibility, that if you don't have something that you want or something that you need, you just need to work harder and you need to strive more. And that there's never enough, that there's never a good enough. Like in our society, especially, like I say, if you're into any spirituality, self-help, personal growth, any of that kind of stuff, the message is always tilted either a little bit or a lot towards this idea that we need to be living full tilt maximal lives all the time. Like if we really kind of boil down most of the messages that we get in spirituality, self-help, personal growth, and self-improvement, any of that stuff, and from culture itself, from just mainstream regular culture, the narrative is you should be in a state of maximal growth, maximal achievement, maximal self-expression, maximal earning, maximal working, maximal relationship hacking, maximal health at all times, right? And that, again, if you aren't, that you're lazy, that you're broken, that there's something wrong with you, that you're not trying hard enough, you're not reaching your potential, and this is the reason you feel dissatisfied, right? I really want to hone in on this because I feel like this is something we all need to really recognize in ourselves so that when we're interacting with our self-help, personal growth, spirituality, regular culture stuff, we really can notice the hooks in us, that lead us down following these paths that are never going to actually satisfy us and that are part of the destruction we're all seeing that we want to change, right? So again, I understand that we all have, to some degree, a desire for society to change. We want to see the world be different. We can see that there is harm and all this stuff going on out there, and we feel overwhelmed of how to change that. And then at the same time, we feel like in our own personal lives, in our own selves, we don't feel satisfied, we don't feel good enough, we don't feel like we're enough, we don't feel like we're doing enough. And there can be legitimate not enough in our lives, or we're actually unsafe, we don't have what we need, we don't have enough, and then feeling like it's our fault, or there's something wrong with us, or we need to continue to work harder and do better and all these things and strive because that's the reason we don't have enough. Or we do in reality have enough. We really are okay in terms of being able to make a good life for ourselves, being able to survive and have the things that we need, but we constantly feel like it's not enough. We constantly feel like we should be doing more, and we should be achieving more, and we should be going for more. And all of this ties in, right? All of this ties in to the fact that we are human and we have existential dread. We don't understand where we came from. We don't understand how consciousness happens. We don't understand what's going to happen after we die. And we live on an earth that is fundamentally unstable, unpredictable, and especially the last couple of years. Any of us that were living kind of like a modicum of a stable life in the Western world or wherever we were, and we kind of had stability, quote unquote, for a while, I just feel like I don't know that anyone really went through the last kind of few years of everything that we've gone through and what's currently going on and all these things without our like, holy shit, life is not secure wound being triggered. And again, like I say, I believe this is this not enough, this fear of not enough, this fear of instability, this deep trauma that I just feel like humanity as a whole carries is there for a very good reason. And that very good reason is forever, as long as we've been humans, as long as we've been on this earth, things have been unstable. The weather has been unpredictable, storms, droughts, we have fought with each other, resources have been scarce, we had things going well and then a disease would come through and wipe out everyone we knew. Like, for all of humanity, life has been hard and life has been scary and life has been unpredictable and life has been challenging. And I think, again, right, that this is part of the reason why we seek spirituality and especially religion in a lot of ways, is because we're just like, we have an existential dread. Very much because being alive is very existential. You see, like, that it's totally normal and natural that we have these like, holy shit, I don't feel safe, I don't feel okay, I don't feel secure. Because ultimately we aren't, right? On this planet we just aren't. We aren't going to have ultimate safety. We aren't going to have ultimate perfection. We aren't going to be able to always protect ourselves from everything that could possibly harm us, ever, right? And I know that in like the holistic health world, people have really glommed on to a lot of ideas of if you just do the right diet, if you just do the right lifestyle, if you just hack your body perfectly, you'll never get sick and you'll be in perfect health forever. And then this message of you are in complete control of your health is really alluring, because again, that when we hear the I am in complete control, that if I just do the right things, if I just do everything perfectly, we want to believe that that can lead to a perfection, that can lead to an assurance that we're never going to get hurt again, that we're never going to get sick again, that we can't get sick and have something that we can't deal with, that we're not going to be stuck in suffering, and that we're not going to die, right? In the relationship world, it's the same thing. Polarity and all of these spiritual relationship stuff. It's this constant trying to get to this perfect safety in relationships where we're never going to get abandoned and we're never going to get hurt and we're perfectly balanced and we're going to get all of our needs met and we're going to meet the needs of our partners and everything's going to be this beautiful whole, we complete each other with partners and everything works together and it's this perfect thing. If we just do the relationship thing right, we'll never feel abandoned, we'll never feel alone, we'll never feel hurt ever again. And then in the success world, it's if you just work hard enough and find your purpose and find your career and all of these things, you're going to make $1 million and you're going to be secure for the rest of your life, and then you'll have job security, and then you'll have abundance, and then that abundance means that you have access, and that access means that if anything happens to you, you can buy your way out of it, right? And it's just this constant, you need to be working harder, striving, bigger, competing, getting bigger, growing, expanding, because that's how we give ourselves safety. And so I think if we kind of all just take a step back and look at where this deep feeling of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough is really coming from, for most of us, it's coming from, we all have this existential dread, we all have the existential fear, we all have that, like, what if I'm not safe, what if I'm not okay, what if I'm not safe in the future, what if I'm not doing all the right things? And then we're looking for that thing in the external world that we can just do perfectly, that we can just do enough. And then if we do, we will finally feel safe. It's going to absolve us of our guilt. It's going to absolve us of our shame. It's going to absolve us of our fear that we're not going to be enough and we're not going to have enough, and therefore we're going to suffer. Yeah? And that is normal human psychology. We want to believe that we are in complete control, that everything comes down to us, and we would rather take on shame and guilt and blame and this idea that I am not enough, I am not good enough, the reason my life sucks, anything that's wrong, any pain that's happening in my life is because of me. Because that makes us feel like then we're in control, because we can change ourselves, we can fix ourselves, we can take control of whatever it is that's wrong with us, that's causing us our pain, and therefore we feel empowered. So that's the first kind of thing, is to understand that it's natural and normal and reasonable to be a human who has existential dread, because life is not secure. Life is never going to be secure. We have developed lots of technologies and lots of understandings and lots of ways of being that have made it more secure than it's ever been. Right? Like, the more we understand about ourselves, the more we understand about how nature works, the more we understand these things, we can develop systems that work within the natural laws of the universe, and with that, we can get our needs met in a more intelligent way. That's really what that is. Yeah, we can predict what our own needs are, we can predict how the world is going to be, and we can navigate that in a way where we can get our needs met more on a regular basis. We can be more aware of how things work, and therefore we can predict what's going to happen, and then we can change ourselves in order to have the best chance of getting our needs met. So there is truth to the idea that the more we kind of understand about human physiology, the more we can alter our lifestyles in certain ways to certain degrees, that's going to give us the best chance of health. Yeah? The more we understand about our personalities and attachment styles and about how to relate in ways that are harmonious with other people and the way that other people work, of course we can create more harmonious relationships. The more we understand about our positions of impact and how we can work and all of these things to get our needs met. Yes, right? There's a degree of truth to that. And self-empowerment and taking responsibility for the things we can do and the things that we are able to control and all of that stuff is very important. And we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because we do have power and we do have control over certain things. And where we do have power and where we do have control, we should execute that. And that's always going to be helpful for us. And at the same time, we need to recognize where the solution being offered is not the solution. The solution to our existential dread, the solutions to our feeling of inadequacy, the solutions to, and even the explanation for why we feel so inadequate and why we feel like we're not doing enough and why we feel like we should be doing more. When the solutions being offered are not solutions. And when the explanations of where those feelings are coming from are not accurate, that's where we suffer, because we're continually trying to enact a solution, we're continually trying to attack a problem that isn't reality. You see? So it's when we misunderstand what the problem is, or when we misunderstand what the solution is, we are going to continually suffer, because whatever we try and do to fix the problem won't actually fix it. Yeah? If we have a headache that's coming from tension and we keep trying to change our diet, we're always going to have a headache, because the headache is coming from tension. The headache is coming from a misalignment in our spines, or the way that we carry ourselves. We can change our diet all we want. It's never going to fix the problem. You see what I'm saying? So I know that so many of us walk around feeling like we're not enough, and we're not doing enough, and we should be doing more, and we should be striving harder. And the world is always going to tell you that. So this is the big thing that I really, again, want us to all understand. So number one, we're all understanding that we have existential dread inside of us. That is a normal part of being alive. That there is always going to be insecurity. There is always going to be not knowing. There is always going to be the possibility that some tragic thing happens and it totally changes our entire life. There's always going to be the possibility that we get sick and we didn't know we were going to get sick, that we lose a job, that someone passes away, that someone decides to leave, that the economy crashes. Like, I know, especially like even like in the manifestation world and all these things, we want to believe that like life is happening for me and everything is part of my hero's journey, and there's this plan to everything, and nothing is random and nothing is chaotic and everything is perfectly perfect, and I either need to like focus on myself so much that I'm perfectly in alignment in my thoughts and in my feelings and in my energy and in my chakras, so that no bad thing ever happens to me again, and anything bad that's happening to me is a reflection of something that's wrong inside, and we're kind of doing that whole loop all the time. Or we're constantly looking for the lesson and the blessing and the how this is here to help me and how this is better in everything that happens to us. And with the manifestation thing, again, I'm not saying that our lives are totally out of control and have nothing to do with us. But I do think that sometimes we take it too far, and we over-assume our power, and we over-assume the human-centricness of our lives. We over-assume the us-centric nature of the reality that we're experiencing. Like, we literally sometimes forget that other people are other people. And sometimes the way that someone treats you has absolutely nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them, and you were just in the line of fire that day. Sometimes someone decided to text on their phone and you were just the car that they rammed into. And it had nothing to do with your vibration. It had nothing to do with what was going on with you. And so this is what I'm saying, right? The idea, taking things too far in the direction of everything is because of me, and therefore if anything bad happens to me, it's because I did something wrong, or there's something inside of me that drew that to me. We want to believe that, because again, if that is true, that means we can be in complete control. That means we can fix anything that's wrong with ourselves. That means we can manipulate ourselves in all these different ways so that eventually bad things will stop happening to us. And I understand why we want to believe that, yes? And so what I'm saying is, we want to start to understand, and we want to start to slowly move ourselves towards being able to accept the idea that not everything is about us, that not everything is because of us, and that not everything can be controlled by us, right? And that's the existential dread we're all running from, with this taking the everything is a reflection of me to its ultimate conclusion, which is that everything is a reflection of us. Some things are, right? When we're in a committed relationship with someone and we're constantly having the same pattern over and over again, that's usually something we're like, okay, I can do something about that. But when, again, someone on the street yells at us, that probably has nothing to do with us. And we have to be able to start to discern the difference between patterns that are in our lives that we can do something about and random occurrences that aren't because of us, right? We want to step out of our childhood mentality, because again, I know that this can feel really condescending, and I don't mean it to come across condescending. I mean it to come across evolutionarily, that just like when we were children and we assumed everything was about us because that's how we made ourselves feel safe, and that was the only thing we could understand. We could not understand that our caregivers were different people who were having a different experience, and not everything that they did towards us was because of us. Right? When the first question that almost every child asks when their parents are getting a divorce, when their parents say, okay, little Timmy, your mom and I love you, but we're getting a divorce, the first thing the child asks is it my fault? Right? Because that's the childhood perspective of the world. It's, if anything bad happens, it's because of me. Anything that my caregivers do is because of me. And then we take that and we spiritualize it by saying anything that happens to me is a reflection of me, because the universe is paying very close attention to me individually. And it has this very specific plan for me individually. And it's just constantly giving me feedback for, am I creating the life that I want or not? Because again, that makes us feel like we're being loved and cared for by some higher power that's paying very, 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 very close attention to us, and is then shaping our lives and telling us all these things about our inner state and all these things with our external reality. And then nothing else exists except for ourselves. And then we are in complete control. So we can see how that's a little bit of a childhood evolution into spirituality, a childhood projection onto spirituality, when really it's just that's what we believed as children. So we want to start to understand, again, what if the universe isn't human-centric? And what if Earth isn't you-centric? What if your experience of reality isn't all about you? And some things that you experience, again, you were just there. And so then that other side of like, how can we look at the positive of everything? I mean, I'm the type of person that does that, but that's usually like, again, I'm not doing that for some spiritual reason. And I'm not doing that for some reason to like be a good person or whatever, to like look for the positive in everything. It's just, it can be used as a technique to say, okay, that's what happened, and I'm going to let myself process my feelings, and I'm going to be upset about it or whatever it is, and then I'm just going to accept the reality of it and just for myself just say, okay, what can I do with this? And I think if we take it from that kind of grounded perspective, so not assuming like God or the universe or whatever purposefully put that in my life in order to help me with this one thing, and that's why it was a blessing and all that stuff. Like, I don't know that we necessarily have to create a story about it like that, and that there's meaning, that there's inherent meaning in everything. And sometimes we can just say, I'm gonna make meaning. Like, right, I am aware, and I think that this is a really positive thing for us psychologically, to be aware that we want to create meaning out of everything that happens to us. That's the way that our minds are. And so we can take that and we can have that understanding of ourselves, is we want to believe that there's meaning in everything. We want to find the meaning in everything. And then rather than, again, making a whole big universal hero's journey story out of everything, we can say, my mind wants to create meaning out of that thing that just happened. So number one, is there a pattern there of like greater reality that I can learn from? Like, Like if you get on a plane, there is a chance that someone is going to throw up next to you. Like that's just, we start to say, okay, that happened because that's a thing that happens when you're on airplanes. So it wasn't like some universal cosmic thing. It was that's a cause and effect risk that I take every time I get on an airplane. So do I want to continue to get on airplanes? Is it worth it to take that risk or not? And we can start to say, like, right, there are patterns and there are risks, and we have to assess the risks of our lives and say, do we want to keep putting ourselves in these situations or not? And then, so that's the first kind of, we understand that we have pattern making minds, meaning making minds, and we can look for the patterns that exist. And then we want to be able to catch ourselves where we're looking for patterns that don't exist. And again, that's where that is the whole, like, everything is because of me, everything is happening because of me, I don't feel good because of me, everything is because of me. That's where we want to start to say, okay, there's something we can consider there about we're over assuming our power and our role in the reality that we're living in. Okay? And then, like I say, to really understand that we have meaning-making minds. So if we want to say, I am going to choose to find a positive in everything because that's what I want to do for myself. We're not saying there's an inherent positive in everything. We're not saying there's an inherent lesson in everything. We're not saying this is why this happened. We're saying this is how I'm going to approach it. This is what I'm going to do to work through it. I'm going to look for some positive thing. I'm going to look for something that I could get out of it simply for my own experience of it. Not that that was inherently planned or that that's inherently in there, but that's the meaning I'm going to make from it. You see? So we can do that. And I feel like that's a very healthy thing to do. Okay, so I got a question. You made a video a long time ago about what to do when you don't know what to do. It was on the Perspective Mind Shift channel. I don't know what the Perspective Mind Shift channel is. And I don't know what it's called, sorry. But yeah, essentially when you don't know what to do, my offering is always to just turn back in and give yourself compassion and to make yourself as safe as you possibly can and to become okay with the not knowing. Because sometimes the best thing we can do is admit that we don't know. Because most of the time when we're in a situation where we're trying to solve our problems and we're going back and forth and we're doing all these things to try and fix it, what we're actually going to recognize is that we're looping between two extremes and we're doing it slightly different ways. We're doing all, like, going as hard as we can on this one solution and then giving up, and then going as hard as we can on this one solution and then giving up, and we're trying the same two things or three things over and over and over and over again, thinking we're doing something different every time, but really it's the same thing every time, just with a slightly different costume. And we need to start to say, okay, the solution that I have right now isn't the solution. Otherwise it would have worked, right? Everything that I've thrown at this problem, if it was right, if it was the answer, it would have worked and I wouldn't be in this situation anymore. So now I need to take a step back and realize that I need to take in more information. I need to learn something I don't already know. I need to see something I'm not already seeing. And in order for that to happen, we need to make ourselves feel safe. We need to make our nervous systems as regulated as we possibly can. And that's not to say that we can make them like perfectly regulated or that we can be perfectly calm or feel safe in a situation where we don't feel safe externally. But we make ourselves internally safe as much as we can. We accept ourselves, we love ourselves, we nourish ourselves as much as we possibly can. And in that, we're going to open our perspective. And like I say, we make it safe to not know for a while, because that is actually the precipice of a new solution we've never enacted before, which is, again, right, if you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. And most of us aren't even recognizing that we're doing the same things over and over and over again to solve a problem. And we're not catching ourselves and saying, okay, I can't keep doing this. This isn't working. And then because we're afraid that when we do, we go, well, then I don't know. I don't have the answer. And it's like, yes, that's good. Allow yourself to be in that unknown. relax, allow yourself to take in more information. Okay? So we're opening ourselves to that. And that, again, comes back to what we're talking about here, which is the just because you can doesn't mean you should, which is most of us are living in this constant state of feeling like we're not enough, feeling like we're not doing enough, feeling like we're not achieving enough, and feeling like this existential fear that's inside of us is coming from our inherent lack. Okay, so what I want all of us to start to understand is that when we feel that tension, anxiety feeling of I'm not doing enough, I'm not achieving enough, I am not enough, I am not good enough, I should be doing more, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't have my relationship, my body isn't perfect, all of these things, I don't know, I don't have enough money, all of this stuff. That panic state, we want to first be very compassionate with ourselves that we're feeling that way. Okay? Instead of immediately jumping to what do I do, or oh my God, what's wrong with me, and all of that stuff, we want to start to be able to witness that story, to witness that part of ourselves that's not feeling enough, and to witness the solution that that part wants to give us. Because all of us have that, well, it's because you don't know your purpose. It's because you don't have friends. It's because you don't have your relationship. It's because of your body. And then we go into this nitpicky, this is what I need to do about this. These are all the little details I need to rearrange in my life, and maybe I should try this, and maybe I should try that, and we go about that. Or we go, I'm never going to figure it out. I have no idea what's going on. I'm completely lost. Everything I've tried has failed, and I'm the worst, and I'm never going to figure it out, so I may as well just give up. And that's usually how we swing, right? So we go either to the extreme action or to the extreme giving up on ourselves, and we just kind of swing between these two states, constantly feeling like when we're doing all the action, we're doing all the things, we kind of feel high on it for a little while, and we feel great, we feel, wow, we're doing it, and then we get exhausted, we get burnt out, we get run down, we can't keep going, we fall, we have the times where we're told we're lazy and we're broken and we're not doing enough and we can't do it, we can't perform, we can't do it, we can't perform, and then we fall into procrastination, and we feel like we're just procrastinating and we can't get anything done and we can't be productive. And like I say, some of us operate on the like high tilt, just go, push most of the time. And we have these little crashes and burns, but we don't let ourselves go down for too long, and then we get back up again and keep running. And then some of us feel like we're stuck more in the procrastination. We just never really seem to be able to get anything done. We never seem to be able to get anywhere. We think that we're just lazy and incompetent and can't do it. And like I say, so some of us swing between both equally. Some of us are more the mobilizer. Some of us are more the freeze type. But it's all three different sides of the same coin of we feel insecure. We feel like that insecurity is a reflection of us, and there's something we should be doing about it. And then we feel attack, we feel unsafe, because again, the whole idea that we're in pain and that pain is my fault makes us shut down, makes us scared, it makes us do the pattern that we've always done, it makes us enact the solution we've always enacted, and then we're just in these cycles of never getting anywhere. You see what I'm saying here? And so a lot of us, again, constantly feel, I'm not doing enough. No matter how much we're doing, we're not doing enough. And then if we're doing very little, we're not doing enough. So one second. Is it law of attraction at work that I had the same question as the person who asked this? Or is this random in the context of what you were talking about before? I don't know that it's either. I think it's more just humans aren't that different from each other. And the things that I talk about them because I've witnessed these patterns over and over and over again. I think, again, sometimes we think we're more unique than we actually are. Yeah? The fact that a lot of us have similar questions, and a lot of us have similar experiences, and a lot of us have similar feelings. The reason I can come on here and say these things that are so general and people feel like I'm speaking directly to their lives, it's because we're not that different. But that's really what it means. The pattern is humans are more alike than we are different. We have a couple of different patterns that we're all playing out with a slightly different costume, but at their core, the roots are the same. And that's why the things that work for some of us often work for a lot of us. And that's why, again, like I say, so many different people can watch a video like this or that other people put out and be like, whoa, you like, how did you know that that's what I was thinking? Or how did you know that that's exactly, like, I feel like you were speaking directly to me. And it's like, well, yeah, because we're kind of not that different. Yeah, so someone just says, we ain't so special. And I think that that's really what it is. It's like when we start to recognize that, and I think that this should be something that's really encouraging, right? Because a lot of us just feel like we're so alone and we're so different and we're so unique and like our problems are just so special and so different than everyone else's problems. And it's like, I know that's, again, in our world, a lot of us right now, we're struggling with the seeming paradox that as humans, we want to feel special and unique and individual almost or probably equally as much as we want to feel connected and part of the group and like we're included. We have this push and pull constantly of wanting to be different and to be the same. And I feel like we're living in a world right now where it's been so historically unsafe for us to be our whole true selves. And that includes the things that are special about us and the things that are like our strengths and the things that we're good at and the things that we're interested in. And again, right, most of us grew up with our quirks and our weirdness and our talents and our interests being shamed and blamed and guilted, and we're not allowed to have that and you're not allowed to be that. And we're now kind of in a world, and I'm not saying that this is bad and I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I'm just saying I'm observing a trend that a lot of us are now finding our camaraderie, finding our connection, finding our community in the things that are hurting in our lives. We're finding our connection and our camaraderie in like, I suffer the way that you suffer and we're suffering the same, and look at how our suffering is the same. And at the same time, a lot of us are looking to find our identities in our suffering because it's not been historically safe to find our identity in the things that we're good at and the things that are unique and special about us in more of a positive way. And I think the answer is that we need to start to make it safe to be a whole human who has both talents and gifts and strengths and interests and struggles and pain and things that are hurting about us. And I want for us to be able to embrace all of those things about all of ourselves, and that we can find our community and our connection in the things that are hurting in our lives, the ways that we're struggling in the same ways that other people are struggling. Yeah, just watch it back. The answer's in there. And finding our connection in our struggles, in that we can like support each other through that emotionally. We can find tools together, we can do all that stuff. And then I hope that we also equally find our connection and our individuality in what makes us special, and that we will stop being so jealous of each other, and that we will stop being so don't get a big head, right? Like, and again, it all just comes down to this lack of security, this lack of feeling like there's enough. So we feel like if someone is big and they're going to take up space, that's going to take from other people. And the reason we feel that way is because a lot of the time it does. A lot of the time in our capitalist society, those at the top really do take from the bottom. Those who are saying, I am big and I am awesome and I take up all the space in the room, really depend on exploitation and other people not having enough and other people not being able to be their big selves. And there's this competition. So again, we are constantly operating in this world where competition is the name of the game. And more is always better. And we are blamed for any and all of our own insecurity. We have been trained to blame ourselves for any and all of our own insecurity. So then we all feel like we're not doing enough. And that has to be the reason why we don't feel good. Because we're not enough. We're inherently not good enough. We're inherently not doing enough. And then we freeze or we flight. And we do a whole bunch of stuff, or we do nothing, or we oscillate between the two. And that's where so much of this pattern of never feeling like we're doing enough comes from. And then we perpetuate our toxic capitalism, where we're constantly overproducing and constantly overconsuming, and where we don't take care of each other, and where we're all every man for himself, and we exploit nature and we exploit one another. And then we have huge swaths of people who have to fight in the rat race in order to survive, because they don't have access to making a life better for themselves where they don't have to do that. And so my big message when you're feeling like you're constantly not enough, and you're not doing enough, and you're not all of these things, and you're looking at your life and you're thinking, I could be doing that, and I should be doing that, and I could be doing that, and I should be doing that, because I technically have enough time, or I technically have the energy. And like, right, again, so many of us max out our lives for periods of time. We go as hard as we possibly can in our work and in our relationships and in our diets and in our fitness and we're pushing and pushing and pushing, and we're meditating and we're doing all this stuff, and then we crash. And we're out for a while, and it feels like we lose all of our progress. And then we get back on the horse and get back on, and then maximize, and then we crash. And we keep thinking, what's wrong with me that I keep crashing? And we have these constant waves of high proficiency, high output, and then a crash, and then high output, and then a crash. And sometimes these high outputs and the crashes are like years. Like, we go to university and we're like super high output for the whole 5 or however long we're there, and then we get our job and then we crash and we have to like quit, right? Or we're running our own business and we're super on it for a little while and then we crash. And it's just, again, we're not taking time to step back and first and foremost feel into the insecurity that we're feeling. And rather than immediately assuming it's something to do with us, something to do with us doing enough or not doing enough, we're not looking any deeper than that. And I feel like that is part of the reason why a lot of us are just on a hamster wheel that never ends, of just constantly looking for that thing that we're supposed to be doing that will make it so that we feel like we're enough. And we're not stepping back and saying, it's insecure to be a human. This insecurity that I feel, I'm never going to fully run from it. I'm never going to fully get rid of it. No matter what I believe religiously, no matter what I believe spiritually, no matter how perfectly perfect I make my life, that feeling of insecurity is going to exist. And we know because we have billionaires. We have billionaires who have access to literally anything they want to have access to, who will not redistribute their wealth, who will continue to hoard more for themselves. So if we need any proof that the existential dread cannot be bought away, capitalism cannot solve it, we have that proof. Now, that doesn't mean that for certain members of society, we can't do a lot more to make people a lot safer than they are right now. This is what I want us to understand, that money and access and resources don't get rid of the existential dread. At the same time, we don't want to pretend like having a reasonable income, a reasonable level of safety, a reasonable level of access doesn't dramatically change your life experience, because it does. So many people on this planet have trauma, not enough trauma, because they actually didn't have enough. They actually don't have enough. It's not safe for them. But the problem is that our capitalist culture is telling people who are safe, who do have enough, who are at a place of security and enoughness, that they need to continue to do more and achieve more and acquire more. And so everyone is out there fighting for themselves when large portions of the population really don't need to be doing that anymore. And so we're not turning around and saying, okay, no, I do have enough. I don't need to keep acquiring more for myself. I am okay. So again, this is not about self-sacrifice. This is not about saying now you need to go without so that other people can have enough. It's saying we need to start to assess for ourselves. Is this okay? Is this reasonably sustainable? And if it is, then maybe I don't need to continue to pursue harder. Maybe this then means my existential dread now is something that capitalism and working and doing more and achieving more and becoming more isn't going to solve. And I'm now in a position where I can start to say, no, I want to shift the needle of our capitalist society and say, I'm going to turn around and redistribute. Government's not going to do it. Billionaires aren't going to do it. Corporations aren't going to do it. I'm going to do it. Right? I have enough. I am okay. Now, I can take the excess that I have and I can share it. Or I can literally just not take more. I can stop participating in this system that requires exploitation, that requires that people do not have enough so that I can continue to accumulate more. You can literally just stop. So again, please hear me. This is not about saying if you actually legitimately don't have enough, you need to have less. No, it is not up to the people who have not enough to fix the system. I really believe that this huge middle class of us who have enough, who legitimately do have enough. So again, I am not asking anyone who does not have enough to sacrifice. I am saying for those of us who can say, no, this is good enough. I have a reasonable career. I have a reasonable level of health. I have reasonable relations. I don't need to be leveling up all the time. I don't need to keep reaching for more. I can continue to grow and expand in a sustainable way, in a way that's not just feeding capitalism, but that's like, personal growth expression and in my relationships and all these things. But again, balancing that with appreciating that sometimes we just have a good enough thing. We're not feeling inadequate and insecure and shitty because what we have isn't good enough. It's because we've been trained to never understand when we do have a good enough thing and to appreciate it. Okay, this is part of what's driving so many of us to feeling like we're so unstable all the time, because we're not allowed in our society to say, no, this is good enough. And so I'm just going to actively appreciate it. I'm going to be in it and I'm going to appreciate it. I'm going to say, wow, I am so freaking fortunate to be in a position where I can have this reasonable life, right? And again, like, this is why you don't see me constantly coming on here leveling up and like with my life drama. because I found a pretty reasonable amount of reasonableness for myself, and now I'm just riding that. My life isn't this huge up and down thing like it used to be. I'm consistent because I found enough. And then the hardest thing for me was learning how to not keep doing stuff, because I technically have time in the day. I could be doing more. I absolutely could spend more time working. I could build another project. I could be reaching other people. And I'm just not going to do it because I don't need to. And also, right, like I have health issues, I have all these things. My mind wants to do more a lot of the time, but my existential dread is not coming from that. And I had to get really real with myself. That it's like, no, yeah, right? Like I'm not what capitalism tells me to be. I'm never going to come up here and be like, hey, I'll teach you how to have $1 million business. Because I don't have $1 million business, and I'm never going to have $1 million business. Because I am not going to do what it would take to do that. Because I have a good enough life. So now, right, I'm redistributing. I'm taking the excess that I have and I'm giving it back. I'm taking time to just rest and not do stuff. And learning that just because I could doesn't mean I should has given me such an immense amount of freedom in my life. And I believe that, again, this is how we build a new society. I'm one less person that's constantly buying new clothes and constantly doing things to my face and because I have to keep up. I just don't do it. So that money goes to organic produce. And again, not saying organic produce is the thing we all need to be doing. Just that's where I want to redistribute. These are the people I want to support. These are the businesses and the practices and ways of life and community that I want to build. I have time to make free content because I'm not pushing for more. I want this to be accessible. And I'm in a position where I can give it away for free. So I'm going to. I'm not saying everyone should, but I'm saying that's where I'm at. So you see what I'm saying here? Is I really want us to start to just slow down with this idea that we're not enough. And that's why these tools of self-love, curiosity and compassion. So first, being very compassionate with yourself. Understanding that, like, we live in a world that constantly tells you that you're not good enough. That constantly tells you that everything is within your control. So if anything bad happens to you, or if anything's happening or whatever, it's all because of you, and it's all a reflection of you, and you, and you should be doing more, and you should be achieving more, and you should be helping more, and you should be more and more and more. You have time. Everyone has the same 24 hours as Beyonce, so why aren't you achieving everything she is? Oh, the level of just like ignoring reality that statement, I don't even understand how people cannot just laugh at it. But anyways, we have compassion for that. We have compassion for where we actually are insecure. We actually don't have enough. Society is not helping us. We have to look at for real. We have to actually assess for real. Is this enough for now? And again, understanding that we can all go, well, what if this happens? Then it's not enough. Yes. Right? We plan for the future reasonably. But we don't have complete control. We don't have complete control. We're never going to have complete control. We're never going to have perfect. This is the Kim Kardashian approach to life. Yes. We're never going to have perfect security. We have to understand that there are levels of wealth that, to a degree, absolutely make us more safe, more access to healthcare and medicine and sanitation and education and the ability to do things. And that's reality. And we want that redistributed for more and more people. We want to start to deal with the human trauma that we have to compete and there's not enough because we have millionaires and billionaires. There's enough. There is absolutely enough at this point. So for us in the middle, where we don't need to take any more, don't. Where we don't need to fight anymore, don't. Redistribute. Where you have the capacity to redistribute, do it. Turn around and give people who don't have the opportunities that you have, the opportunities that you have. Don't keep pushing for more when you don't need more. Don't keep blaming yourself for stuff that isn't your fault. Understand, we don't have complete control over our health. We don't have complete control over our relationships and other people. We don't have complete control over our resources and finances. We take as much power as we can, and then we stop and we rest. We focus on other things. We enjoy what we have, and we redistribute where we can. That is how we build a new society. It's not about checking out. It's not about working harder. It's about becoming more of a community. And we become more of a community, the safer we understand ourselves to be. And so we have to check out of the mindset of not enough. We have to be realistic. Do we have enough? Like, really getting honest with ourselves. Is this enough? Am I okay? Is this enough? And if it is, I don't need to be going for more. Unless I really want to and it's for some personal rest is revolution. Absolutely. Because again, the more of us who check out of this constant production and constant consumption, like if nothing else, we will stop destroying the planet at the rate that we're doing it. If just more of us stop buying shit, they stop making stuff we don't need to be making. That's less pollution. Literally just that. Right? Less things to fill the void. And we start to like, okay, where is this actual void coming from? We start to heal in ourselves this trauma of constantly being told that we're not enough and that we're not lovable and that we're not good enough. That's where that self-love comes in. We start to be our own love so that we're less susceptible to that message. And then we're less susceptible to continuing on doing all this stuff where we don't have to. And then we start to be where the wheels of capitalism fall off and the wheels of community care come on. Don't do more than you need to do. Don't do more than is required for a good, reasonable life. So again, I'm not saying everyone has to be the most minimal possible, right? I'm not the most minimal possible. I'm not saying the most minimal. I'm saying a reasonable life. Enjoy your life. Like, we have enough, but we don't need excess. We don't need Kim Kardashian level. That's not it. Studies have proven that beyond $75,000 a year, you don't get happier. So that's, again, we understand that yes, a reasonable level of access makes a huge difference. We want that for more people. So how do we create that? Those of us who already have that don't need to keep having more. We turn around and we help. We give it. We make the opportunities, right? Everyone deserves the opportunity to have a meaningful, reasonable life. And if we stop consuming and stop producing at the rates that we're doing this, we can have more time for rest and focusing on other areas of our lives, appreciating the goods that we have, and then again, feeling that safety, which is going to make it so that we realize where we do have something to give, where we can just make room for other people. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean it's actually helpful or good or will change anything in a positive way. Can we start to assess where we already have enough and where that feeling of existential dread is a spiritual thing, right? Is a trauma from our past thing? We use these tools of self-love and making ourselves a safe place and processing that stuff so that we don't keep running to the outside world to fill a void the outside world can never fill. So again, I hope you could hear the nuance. I'm not telling anyone to have not enough. I'm saying when we've reached a level of reasonable enough, we got to start to recognize in ourselves that that feeling of not enough isn't coming from not having enough. And we start to do our inner work so that we can turn around and create a society where we don't need to have excess, so that everyone can have access to enough. Because it doesn't matter where we came from, whatever. Now we're at a place where we have that. We have the technology to do that. We have the redistribution to do that. We have so much excess. That is evidence that there's enough for everyone if we redistribute properly. And again, it's not even free handouts. It's giving people opportunity. So where you are called to help redistribute, wherever that is for you, education, food, whatever area, sector of society you want to be helpful in, do that. There's no right way to help redistribute. There's no right way. There's all of us doing the thing that calls to us. But we got to make ourselves safe enough to be able to figure out what that is, right? So if we are safe, if we are reasonably safe and we're doing our trauma work and we're doing our therapy and we're doing all that stuff, it should be turning us into, okay, well, now I'm seeing where I really don't need to be doing more and I don't need to be achieving more, and this is where I can help. And we all are going to help in a different way. You see? Okay. So that's what I wanted to say today. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Let's deal with the trauma of not enough. Let's deal with not being safe, because there have been times where many of us, it wasn't safe to stop and it wasn't safe to rest. And again, I'm not saying that that wasn't true. And I'm not even saying that that isn't true right now. We need to make ourselves internally safe so we can process that stuff and assess, do I really need to keep doing more? Do I need to keep fighting? Or am I okay? There's no blanket answer. It's we assess for ourselves. Is this trauma? Is this past? Is this present? Right? We do that work slowly, being gentle with ourselves, kind, compassionate, curious. Okay. I love you. You are enough. Any instability in your life is not because you're horrible or you're not earning it or you're not doing enough. You're not lazy. You might be frozen. You're not manic. You might be afraid. Be kind to yourself. That's the first step. Okay. I'll see you next week.